Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Expanse, Season 5, Episode 8. It's called Hard Vacuum. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. First thing I'll say is, see if we had 13 episodes still, if this wasn't 10, if this was like still 13, like when we were on Sci-Fi,
sure,
I would have taken a complete episode with Naomi on that ship, with nothing else.
Okay, I get that.
Just basically, I mean, not silence, but it was just, you hear a little bit, but she had no one to talk to, just quiet storytelling, visual, figuring things out. Obviously there'd have to be more for her to do, but I mean,
yeah.
But you know, I kind of like, as I was watching, I'm like, and that's a good portion of the episode. I mean, it may have the most runtime of any of the plots in this episode.
It probably does, yeah.
But like, I was just thinking about it. I was like, yeah, if this was like 13, I mean, I wouldn't argue for it just now because we only have 2 episodes after this. But if this was still 13, I'd have devoted the whole episode to just her side of this.
Yeah, I bet you would.
I love a good a one-person bottle story that's pure visual storytelling. That's like right up my.
There's an art to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think, you know, in lesser hands, that episode is atrocious. But I would trust, you know, this show to pull it off.
That's a pointless thing. I mean, we're 5 seasons in. We don't have to make a disclaimer anymore. We're in levels of trust here. Yeah, Naomi sort of waking up and nothing's actually said out loud, obviously, because she's on her own in terms of like how she's feeling, in terms of what physically she's capable and incapable of. He just does little hints of it here or there. I definitely got the sense for the first little while that she was having trouble seeing clearly, that her vision wasn't particularly great.
We'll give you that.
There's several moments where she's sort of feeling things, and it wasn't like she was kind of reading.
Okay.
Her eyes were kind of squinting. I imagine it feels stronger than this, but kind of like when you first wake up and you're kind of sleepy-eyed.
Sure.
And given how her eyes looked when she was making that jump and when she woke up,
yes, yeah,
her vision being a little off, at least, does not strike me as.
It's a reasonable assumption, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of feeling for things. I mean, she was still looking, but there was a lot of
confirming things, I guess.
Yeah. Probably the most the one that hit the most was, like, I assume how sensitive her skin is right now, particularly when she's trying to get the tool that's under the grate, and she's got like it's just like a part of she's essentially with a pulley system out of just
some rope and
it's
a
not,
harness thing.
No. It's very specific because it's not a rope. It's like a strap. It's like a strap from like a bit of gear. Because it's that, it's that sort of like, like a backpack strap where it's that material that's sort of thin.
Yeah, that's why I said like a harness, like a seatbelt almost.
Right. And the reason why I think that's important to point out here is because when it's slipping through her hands, I mean, sure, a rope would still feel bad, I'm sure, but this is so specific, and it's a sort of strap that we've all held at some point in our lives. We all know what this feels like.
Mm-hmm. The
idea of that sliding through your hands when it's like just been burned, not that that's literally what's happened to her, but I imagine the sensitivities may be similar, or when it's sensitive from a rash or something, and she keeps having to do it. She has to get under there and get to the thing, and we'll get to why in a minute, but those little moments of her like holding her hands and having to fight through the pain, and there again, because there was no just saying out loud, this is what's wrong with me. There was no third character saying this is what's wrong with her. There was none of that. It was all just, we have to sort of see her struggle through the emotions. It's the performance. It's all those things. Something as simple as her kind of throwing up when she first wakes up, and there's just like spit hanging from her face for a good minute in the scene. I always respect that.
The beauty of zero gravity.
I don't even think it has zero gravity though.
No,
is it?
It's not. It's just, I'm just joking.
I think I respect when an actor lets himself have spit drilling from them, because a lot of convenient scenes in movies and TV where they'll wipe it away immediately just so you don't have to be. But like, no, they'll let it sit there, let it look disgusting for a good minute.
Yeah.
I respect that. So no, all that stuff was great, and it told a really nice, simple story. I mean, I might have underestimated how much of this was rigged on the ship. When she gets to the cockpit, and there's literally just
Explosives everywhere.
Explosives in like every corner. It's like, oh dear, this is maybe a bit. I was expecting.
It's one giant bomb.
I was expecting a little a little bit of C4 maybe with a little...
You were like, she'll figure out how to defuse it. Last episode, I was like, this feels a bit more extreme than that.
I did not know this. Well, no, because I assumed it was just like one simple bomb next to, say, the core that would create a bigger explosion. I wasn't thinking every single part of the ship was going to be rigged.
Gotta have redundancies.
So neither did you. You were just assuming things and picking a fight for no reason, right?
Yeah.
You just happened to turn out to be kind of right by complete chance in this case.
That sounds a lot like you just said I was right.
That's what you took from what I just said. Okay.
I did, yes.
So, so the big thing is there's a fake distress call going out that they've kind of made out of her voice, saying, I'm in distress, basically. Come get me. Tell James Holden I'm here.
Yeah, there's no comms. Nav system's not working. Please retransmit to James Holden.
Oh, that was the other thing I really liked about this episode, is that realising quite quickly that they've stripped it clean. Because, I mean, not even out of a malicious way, because they don't expect anyone to be on board. It's just that, we might as well get all the supplies we can off this ship.
Why wouldn't you, right? There's no point in wasting stuff.
The only thing they leave is a suit. It's just, I mean, it's almost lucky for her that the thing that they're using to broadcast this is the comms in a suit, because then she has a suit that she can wear. But that's the only reason why there's a suit there to put on, is because of that.
Yeah. And it makes complete sense why they've done this.
Yeah, but that added to the problem solving. Because, I imagine if the ship was fully stocked, if she had like a suit full of oxygen, if she had all of the tools that would normally be lying around,
be a lot easier.
Her options would have been up quite considerably, and partly just because I assume the comms would still work as well if they hadn't disabled all that. But it added this extra element to really having to get creative to solve her problems, and I think that's where I like these types of stories, is where you can see the gears going to the character's head. You don't necessarily understand what they're doing yet, but you get that they're trying to figure out a solution, and it'll click at some point for you as you're watching the plan play out. Because she tries to, wire the thing. That's why she's going to get the tool. She's a tool to open up the helmet to get into the power for the comms, and it fries when she tries to get in. So she has to put on a suit, and because part of me was thinking, does she go outside and does she find maybe a spare can of spray paint or something that no one's picked up, that she'll try and write a message on the side of the ship for anyone who comes, because it's very specific, because when she does manage to record the message on a particular channel, she can't direct it anywhere. It's just just out into the ether.
On just whatever frequency it happens to be on already. Yeah,
because she gets this from where she puts on the suit and goes to the part of the ship that's not got life support, but she specifically uses the word proximity. This is a proximity trap. It's not just that they have to dock with it. It sounds like if they get within a certain radius, anything that's big enough. I assume maybe with a ship reading, or at least certain amounts of metal, whatever it may be that triggers the proximity, will make it go. And so we get this sequence of her suiting up, and I'm like, okay, she's got a suit now. I mean, she's already been through space without one. I mean, this is going to seem like a cakewalk comparatively.
How wrong you were.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, there's no oxygen. There's literally no oxygen. So she's having to she's breathing, and she's holding her breath. She's got whatever oxygen's just in the suit, whatever she can sort of store up in the suit for a few seconds before she goes into this part of the ship. But it's just this one trip to get this doohickey to make this one message, which no one might ever find, right? Because obviously the main distress call's on a common distress channel that everyone uses because they want to be found. They want to be picked up, and
pretty much everyone's just always scanning for this frequency just in case someone's transmitting for distress signals.
Yeah, it's the SOS call, or at least one that's common enough that's what you would use for SOS if it's not designated specifically.
I'm sure this is something that everyone in space just knows.
And so she's like, okay, I've done what I can. I don't know if I can do any more. But she's then motivated. She's prompted by something else that happens, which is Alex and Bobby get a distress call, and that leads them to come for her. And Alex sends a message because, and this again, in the message she records, she mentions that she can receive messages. She can't send them out, but she can receive them. And she does gets a message from Alex saying, "We hear you, Naomi. We're burning straight to you." And her, cried in pain. No, it's like, no, this is going to get him killed. And this prompts a beautiful sequence with the music playing as she's having to like go in and out of the part of the ship that has no life support. And essentially what she's trying to do is find, I guess, the power line that the comms are running from, so she can, as we obviously you don't really get what she's doing till the very end of the whole sequence, but because she's looking for something, she's like notching on the wall every time she goes in, you know, which one she's doing, and she's going up and she's cutting like cables and trying to do things, and she's coming back and she's not sure, and she's also repeating the fake message they've recorded, the distress call. She's saying it over and over, and clearly it's for timing. She's trying to time it with this message going out. And it's not until the very end when she finally gets the one, and presumably every time she goes in she's going further, because naturally
you would start nearest just because why not, right?
Yeah, and you know, she's getting more and more out of breath. There's CO, you know, the carbon carbon dioxide in her suit is like going up. She's having trouble breathing. She's running back, all that. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful sequence, because when you actually get to the right one and you hear the pause in the message, and
it cuts out,
and that's when you kind of realize, oh, okay, I'm starting to kind of figure out what she's doing here. And she's in there, and because she's found it, she can't just go back now, and she has to stay and do this enough to do something to it. But the music playing through, I thought the music, especially in this episode overall, was actually really good. There was a few scenes that stuck out to me, more so than usual, I thought, of just little bits. There's a bit of synth with Amos at one point that I thought was particularly good as well.
I think there were a couple of moments I thought were maybe a tad overdone on the music compared to usual. I think usually this show is a little bit more reserved. Even when it has its big cues, it tends to save them for one or maybe two moments an episode, and it's relatively reserved the rest of the time. And I quite like that. This here, it felt like it was going, the above and beyond a bit more often.
I couldn't disagree more. So we'll
just personal preference, that one.
I think at this point you've earned the emotion of the characters, that I'm letting the music going a bit more emotional here, as Naomi's basically doing everything she can, and she's basically thinking she's probably screwed and dead. All she's really trying to do is save her friends, and that, I mean, hell, even jumping to the ship before was about saving her friends, saving her family. So that all makes, you know, some emotional impact, and the music sort of ramping up as she's doing this. Which leads to the, you know, because I love that the altered message is playing throughout the credits at the end. Like, it just keeps going as just it's
cutting out. Yeah.
Because obviously other characters get this message. One, of course, is Drummer, who we get the tension between her and Corral, who is gunning for that captain's chair. You know, when they're getting salvaged, she's like eyeing that chair up, and she's sitting there, and she's like, "Oh, this feels good," and she's like really into it. Notable things here is that she claims, because we find out that this ship they're salvaging right now was one of the factions that voted for Marco's death last season, and how that seems a bit fishy, that he might have came after someone for being against him. But
who'd have thought that this guy would take out some political opponents?
But, well, she claims, I don't believe her, but she claims that they were offered to join like everyone else was, and they fought back, and they tried to retaliate.
I believe they were offered to join, and they said no. That does not mean they instantly started fighting, but more they went, all right, fine, well, if you're not going to join us. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but she gives a specific thing that they did. She actually tells a story. She does. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that part of it is bullshit, but I think the overall, like, oh, well, we offered to join, and they said no. Like, that part of it, I buy.
Yeah, I'll believe they offered them to join, but them acting out, them forcing their hand to fight back, I don't.
It feels to me like this is what would have happened if Drummer had said no to the offer. And it's kind of, this is the cautionary tale, right?
Of course, that's completely the point. I mean, the conversation Drummer's having with the crew right before this is them all essentially, conflicting with each other because they hate this new situation. There's tension amongst them, and nothing sort of shows that even better than the scene later on where they're sitting around the table, and it turns into a beautiful scene actually, where they you kind of get a glimpse of why this crew are together, why they're kind of a family, and because we talk about the Rassi crew a lot and them being a family and them caring about each other. This crew on this ship, other than Drummer, we don't know that well. And I think this one scene with them all sort of laughing and smiling after a bit of a fight, they're arguing about, again, discussing what they've just done, this choice they've made to be with Marco's allegiance. And they have this sort of sweet moment where they're all kind of like sucking in the water that's been spilled. Because I thought it was going to break into a bigger fight because he just wasted water. Because we know what water and oxygen are like for the belt. But it becomes this kind of sweet moment where they're all kind of sucking in the bubbles of water.
Wasn't wasted after all.
No, it wasn't. But notably at the end of the scene, it kind of goes sour again. It's like they all just like had a taste of what it used to feel like, and then realized, but it's still this. And it's
it was a temporary
worse. Moment. Yeah. So that I think shows that. But the big thing here, to go back to the message, because that's what I was trying to build up to, is that they get the message, and Drummer's like, because Drummer's agreed to go and help with whatever mission Marcos gave them, but then this message comes through, and she's like, "Well, screw that. We're plot a course to that ship. We're going," and this is, of course, where Kiral's like, no, there's no point. And Kiral's clearly in communication with Marco because she knows everything that happened last episode from their perspective.
Yeah, she's like, no, this is part of a plan that you don't need to know.
Yeah, and there's no point in going. And clearly to think that this will work and it'll talk her out of it is like, Naomi's dead. There's no point. And we see that, there's one scene with Marco and Philip at the start where... And I get why, from Philip's perspective, it looked like she was dead. She went out the airlock, and it's not like he was going to see her land at the other ship from where he was.
No, it's a pretty reasonable assumption if someone went out the airlock to assume, all right, well, they're dead now.
Yeah. I mean, I'd buy him suspecting otherwise if he was actually at, like, say, the window, on the outer wall of the ship, but he wasn't. He was at the other side of the airlock. He wasn't getting a clear view of her hitting the door.
Right. They'll have seen, she went out, Sin's there and dead. They're like, yeah, she's probably dead.
Yeah. And Marco's pissed at Philip. Marco blames him for this. For bringing her to the ship. That was kind of the end of that scene.
It's hard not to blame him. He did bring her. That's just a fact.
Sometimes your logic that sides with villains in shows is weird.
I don't think... I disagree with that. I think a lot of the time, villains are... You're supposed to be able to understand the logic. I'm not saying it's the right choice. I'm not saying they're good people, but I can understand where it's coming from, and that's, to me, that's a good thing. I
get his logic, but you didn't say you understood his logic. You said he was right. There's a difference.
I said, yeah, he's right in that statement. He brought her there. That's his fault. There's no arguing with that.
No, there is. You're ignoring several steps. That one action. And then 10 steps later, it leading to something through lots of other decisions does not make the person who made the first decision 10 decisions ago them to blame. Especially, this is, like, I get why he's thinking this, and the writing's good, because it makes sense why he's thinking this, and his warped sensibilities, but it's very sociopathic, one might say. So the fact that you're hearing this and going, he's right, can't argue with that, is concerning.
I disagree. I think...
Of course you disagree! You're the one who's messed up!
There's a hard fact here. He brought her there. That is his fault. That is everything that happened after is a consequence of that decision.
Oh, so is it your mother's fault? Everything you've ever done in your life that's shit? Is it her fault because she didn't get rid of you when she had the chance?
There's a line, obviously. There's a time point, but I mean, to a point, you could say it's bad parenting and be like, well, it's just to blame for that. You could make that argument.
Well, I mean, but this logic... This is Marco's fault, because Marco drove her away in the first place, and that's why that's such a weird relationship, and that's why he had to bring her back to try and connect her in the first place. Therefore, it's Marco's fault. We can keep doing this. We can keep going further back.
Sure. Okay, I understand that. But this is a pretty recent decision still, that this has happened. It's not that big a chain of events to get back to this. This is, okay, that's a clear starting point of this series of actions.
I understand why Marco thinks it. You agreeing with him is the point here. That's the problem here. Of course you don't.
Nothing wrong with
it. Anyway, so they get the message. Drummer doesn't want to believe her, obviously. and is ready to jump in and like kill her. Like she's got her hand on her gun, and it's Oksana who sort of steps in and sort of pleads with her and stops her and sends her away. Drummer goes for the Ashford booze, the whiskey. And,
yes, she has a big scream in the void.
Yes. She's naturally, her world is just falling apart from her. You know, her best and oldest friend seemingly is dead. She's losing command of her ship. She's having to work for the guy who killed her kind of like mentor, comrade.
Yeah,
character.
everything's pretty shit right now for her.
Do you have a way of like taking a complex idea and thought and boiling it down to just inane, simple?
That's just that was not boiling it down. It's like you just went through all the specifics. I'm not going to go through all of them again. I'm agreeing. It's like, yeah, this is pretty shit for her.
You summed it up by it's pretty shit for her.
Well, you just went through all the specifics.
Pretty shit for someone could also count like, you spilled your dinner on the floor.
And that is the beauty of the English language. It's so versatile.
There's a lot. Well, you have
it's all about context and intent.
You have a lot more choice.
Context and intent matter.
Oh, bloody hell. So that's of course final scene of the episode is actually between Corral and Oksana, and they're sitting at the table, and Corral's kind of opening up and saying, I was close with Naomi once upon a time, but she betrayed us, and she, I was like, she was selfish and she only did what she wanted, what was in it for her, yada yada yada. And they hear the message again, and there's the pauses, right? And I wasn't necessarily sure at first. I mean, given that she was trying to time it, makes it sound like she was trying to delete specific words. But I was also thinking if there was maybe like some sort of Morse code going on in there as well.
It could be, yeah.
That said, though, I'm sure someone will know to decode that quite quickly next episode if it is Morse code. But
yeah, it's possible as well that it was just she wanted to make sure she was cutting out words and not hitting the space between words to make sure that there was an impact at all.
True, yeah.
It could be just as simple as that.
Yeah, you wouldn't have noticed. Yeah. And it just ends with the question. It ends with Oksana saying, "Wait, why did it change? Someone must be on that ship, and could it be Naomi?" And it does end with this great moment of Carol saying, "Oh, it's not possible. She's dead." But then the message just plays out into the credits, and I think what I like about this, because obviously Holding eventually hears from Alex, and the message has happened, and I think it's interesting that we potentially have 3 different ships all gunning for Naomi's location right now. We've got the Razorback, who's presumably the closest. We got Drummer's ship, who I think, I've got a feeling that Drummer, who she's hearing this message again at the end, when she's essentially floating in the fetal position. It's very, do you know what it is? It's like the drunken version of the end of 2001. She's sort of floating in the fetal position, drunk with the booze. It's kind
of hard to argue with that. And I would say it's possible that Drummer's ship is closer, given that they were meeting with Marco not that long ago.
It's possible. I mean, we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I think...
I think we're assuming that the Ross is the furthest away.
Yeah. Not that I think Corral won't put up a fight or try and stop, but I feel like that may be part of the conflict with their characters next episode, you would assume. But
yes, but there's a chance that knowing that someone's alive and there's a mystery might actually make them want to investigate and find out.
Well, I think the question is who on the ship sides with Drummer and wants to go. Because obviously Oksana steps in and stops Drummer in this episode when she thinks there's no point in going. But once she actually knows there's a living person who could be saved, does the morality of that outweigh her trying to stay in the good books of Marco out of fear of death?
Yeah, I think that there's a big difference between letting Marco do his plan. Let's say even some of them might suspect it's a bomb and it's a trap. I can't remember how in detail most of them know. But there's a difference between letting that play out the way it's supposed to according to plan, and now it's an actual rescue mission for potentially one of their own.
Yeah, actually, that's the other thing, is that Corral presumably knows what the plan is, and
yes,
the fact that no one was supposed to be on that ship and now is, and it's a trap, is probably how at least some of them figure out and know that it's dangerous to go there. So maybe next episode becomes almost like okay, how do we get Naomi out of that ship without going near it? How do we solve that problem? I don't imagine her doing an even bigger space jump
It's the sort of thing where maybe we're going, oh well, which ship will get there first? Maybe it's the point we'll have 3 ships there and then try and figure out a solution together.
Yeah, very possibly. So it does kind
and
of
that would actually have a really nice thing where you'd have like a Martian ship, an Earth ship, and a Belter ship almost.
I mean, technically, the Rassi's also a.
Yes, but it's got an Earth captain.
Yeah, technically, it's a Martian ship.
It's a Martian ship with an Earth captain. Just get over it. Stop being picky.
Well, I've been reminded of this repeatedly. It's brought up all the time that it's a Martian ship.
I'm not disputing that, but it's an Earth captain. That makes it Earth in this particular conflict.
Mm-hmm. I've always viewed the Rassi as more neutral, really, if we're asking the question.
Look, yes, the Rossi is Switzerland. Get out. Yes, I know, but whatever.
Because I mean, the crew's made up of a mix of.
It's a multicultural society. Yes, it's the best of all worlds.
Yes, you got Earthers, you got Martians, you got Belters, and you got a reporter. All different kinds of human.
Stretching a little bit on the last one.
So no, I really like the ending. I really like the ominous kind of hope. Like, so I mean, something this show could have been playing into a lot more throughout its run is this idea of like signals in space, and I suppose in a sense it does with the larger alien stuff, but the idea of like a human signal out there and this like static broken up message of the voice coming over the comms does have a nice old school eerie feeling. One of the things that I think we've lost, and it's not like a big loss in the grand scheme of things, but in terms of entertainment we've lost in the last like 30 years, is that the switch from analog stuff to digital like recordings and broadcasts and stuff, is that there was something to static, there was something to that tactile kind of like changing signals and stuff hidden between signals and kind of that feeling. There
is. There's an interesting thing where I think space travel, even in media, is one of the few things that can kind of get away with still using it, because radio, it's a good solid backup at all times, right? It's just we can harness these actual frequency waves that are there, without much real technology. We could jerry rig that pretty easily if needs be. So it's something that you can still get in a lot of space stuff.
Yeah, no, I like it. So I love the feeling at the end of this. And I was super excited like through all the episode. Everything she was doing was super entertaining to watch. The plan coming together at the end, and sort of like the excitement of like how do let's face it, most of our groups converge, possibly next episode. Obviously not Amos. Yeah, he's
just Amos that's left off. Yeah. Do you know what it says a lot? Well, obviously we'll get to the Amos stuff in a minute, but it says a lot that this might be one of my least favorite episodes of the season, and in no way is this episode bad, because clearly it's not. But just, I think I've liked every episode before this more. Maybe if it was a full episode of just Naomi, that might be a bit different.
Yeah, I thought I could agree with that. Yeah, I don't think I can agree with that, but that's maybe more of a taste thing.
Sure, I think that is just a taste thing, yeah.
Yeah, to jump to some of the other characters, Amos, a couple of laugh out loud moments for me with the Amos plot. One very intentional, the other one I don't know if it was intentional, but it made me laugh anyway. For some reason, just cutting to them both peeing back to back, for some reason made me laugh. I don't know why.
Because you're about 12.
I know. I don't know. It was something. No, I actually think there's a genuine point to be made here about both of these characters and how they. Because I think most people, right, particularly when you've got a man and a woman, right, assuming they're not like married or whatever, right? You got a man and a woman. Typically, people are a bit more squeamish about peeing in front of each other or any sort of bathroomy stuff, right? It tends to be something people are a little uneasy about, want privacy, whatever. I think this says something about both their characters and how kind of nonchalant and uncaring they are about certain things, which definitely fits with who they are, especially Amos. That they will just literally go back to back and like. I don't know. Just I don't know if I've ever seen a man and a woman back to back peeing out, because obviously there's lots of scenes of guys standing peeing in like a tree or whatever, just whatever. Occasionally you get a woman crouched down. I don't think I've ever seen a man and a woman back to back like this, just casually doing this. I don't know. It cut to it, and I let out a little chuckle. But I do actually think it bizarrely kind of visualizes their attitude.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from with that.
Yes. So. Don't never let it be said I can't draw out a good bit of material from the simplest of little things.
I mean, all the analysis there, you're probably right. I agree with most of that.
Mm-hmm.
Still, the fact that you laughed though is probably just because you're 12.
It was really just cut to it. It was like I just cut to a wide shot. Oh, they're both pissing. There you go. But they find some dead bodies. It's like an old folks' home, I think, where some of the people who couldn't make it were killed.
That's their theory. Yeah, is they weren't going to survive anyway, so it was like putting them out of the misery almost.
And they hope that's what it was. They hope it was a mercy thing at the very least. Yeah. But they go back to Baltimore, and it's just, I mean, it's only a couple of scenes with them. There's this one, and then the scene where they go back to Eric, and of course, he didn't want to see Amos again. He was very clear about that. Naturally, Amos thinks that, yeah, but some apocalyptic stuff happened. I feel like maybe the deal's changed a little bit. Maybe it's not the world that we're in,
and they're
like a week ago.
Yeah, Amos is like, look, I know where we can get a shuttle, we can get off world. And he's like, why the hell would I want to leave? This is paradise. I'm a king here now. Yeah,
the other, that wasn't his point.
At first, it is. It's a bit. I mean, that's definitely how it came across to me. It is, at first he's like, no. He can kind of be king in the ashes here, and when it rebuilds, he'll be at the forefront of it all.
I remember it was a little bit of that, but it was more about how he's never left this place, and how it was more about how he was already king. He wanted to stay being king. That it was about, oh no, I can rise to the top now. He'd already risen to the top. I
sure, but I think it felt like me in an even more public fashion he could be. But fair enough.
Yeah, because even the wherever everything this scene, the dialogue goes is about Peaches. I'll start using Amos's name for Clarissa, because Clarissa's a hard name for me to say. Clarissa, okay. Peaches, tells us, and actually, there's still laugh out loud moments actually, because the other one I laughed at here that I've just remembered is when she starts telling this story to try and convince Eric to help. She's like, when I was in prison, this inmate, she'd tell me every day how she killed all her kids, and Amos just kind of turns and look. Even the Amos is like, where are you going with this?
Where are you going with this?
that could be a chuckle. Of course, the other laugh is a two-parter. One is him noticing the bottle of that tequila when he's going up the stairs. The other one's at the very end of the scene where he's like, it's going to be a long trip. Hey, I saw some of that tequila that you had. Maybe we should take some of that. Cut. I really laugh. But yeah, but it's a speech she gives about starting over, and how that was how when she realized in prison where, okay, my old life is just gone. Like, I need to stop accepting. It's just like, as the crazy lady who killed her kids put it, she was the one person who still thought she was alive and not dead. Dead being more of a metaphorical thing, that your life as you knew it is gone. So she's trying to convince Eric that, I know you've been here your whole life. I know you've built up this empire, and you've done this for the people around you. You've came from nothing to try and make some things better for yourself and those around you, but you can start over. Starting over is not necessarily the end of the world. So they're going to go to a fancy island resort that's got all the rich people had these little space shuttles that can go into, can launch.
Yes, that's what space shuttles do. You were going to say they go into space, but
that's why I corrected myself, because
I know, but I wanted to point it out because it was just...
obviously a lot of the ships in this show don't come into the atmosphere. They're built in space. They just that's why I was specifying shuttle, because it can take off.
Yeah. Okay, fine. But I like that this is basically just an island of the holiday homes, right? That's kind of the gist I got of it.
I say, like, I don't know, the Hamptons or something. Like,
It's where you have your second home to go and visit for a couple of months in the summer.
They're all filthy millionaires or billionaires, so they've all got their own private space shuttles.
Yeah.
So
sounds nice.
Yes, so that's their goal. That's where they're going. So even though Amos and Peaches can't get to everyone else next episode because they're still on Earth, but they're on their way to a shuttle. They're trying to leave,
and their plan is to get up to Luna. At which point, I mean, maybe they'll get something from a Vassarala up there, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe the idea that we'll get to Vassaral's plot in a minute, but I imagine that maybe she'll want to have, like, she'll prioritize helping him get to Holden the crew, because she wants them to be able to try and counter things that maybe she's not agreeing with the political decisions that are starting to be made. So
they're kind of her own little private task force first responders.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me, just on the idea that the shuttle, like, yeah, it's not good enough to get all the way to the belt. It's not designed for, long range travel.
No, it's just a short little hop.
Yeah, and obviously the moon, from our present day perspective, is not exactly short range, but comparatively to the rest of the show and the space travel going on at short range,
It's the closest thing that you can travel to. Even now, that's a fact.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Not counting like space stations, obviously.
Oh, of course, yes. I was trying to think of technically if there was any anything you could argue is closer, but I suppose space stations are the only thing you could say.
Yeah,
maybe a satellite if you were going up to do maintenance.
That's just a small space station. Fundamentally, that's true.
There's no inside though, is there? The satellites have like an interior where you can go in and take your shit off?
No.
It's not a station then.
That's why they're really small.
It's not a station comparison. Then. It's you wouldn't call I don't know. I'm trying to think of an equivalent on the water.
They are in this scenario. They are both man-made objects that we have placed in orbit around Earth. That is why space stations are just very large satellites. If you think of it that way around, it makes a lot more sense. But I just kind of reversed it, and that's what's throwing you.
I will agree that space stations are satellites. I mean, even the word satellite, the meaning fits what a space station is doing. But I will not accept that a satellite is a space station. all space stations are satellites, but not all satellites are space stations. It's just a jacuzzi hot tub argument. It's flawless.
I like how your first one is jacuzzi hot tub and not like fingers and thumbs.
I think the jacuzzi hot tub sticks with me because I didn't know until I heard that jacuzzi was just a brand of hot tub. I just thought all hot tubs were jacuzzis. So I actually learned something when I heard that phrase. Whereas
you knew thumbs and fingers were...
thumbs and fingers I've known since I was whatever little age.
Probably fairly young.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was meaningful to me. But jacuzzi hot tub, I learned something with that one. So
sure.
There you go. Okay. So Carl was wrong. Is that what we've got to here? I'll accept that. So Vassaralis stuff is interesting because the Secretary General, I thought this was actually really well written and performed, where he comes out and makes his big first speech as Secretary General. And the reason why I thought it was well performed and written is because it's a really fine line they walked here, where they wanted him to have a fairly competent speech that sounded very safe, and he did a good job delivering it, but not an exceptional job. But I think that's the point. It's not supposed to...
He's not trained for this.
He's not a great speaker, but I did come away going, you know what, for a guy who was never trained for this and never wanted to do this, that was an okay reading of the speech.
There's a sort of realistic expectation where if you throw the, what was he, transport secretary into the presidency, so to speak, it's like, yeah, you don't really expect them to be amazing. No one would. But he comes across as perfectly competent, which you go, oh, maybe this guy will be better than we think.
It comes across as a guy who's obviously reasonably intelligent. He's doing his best, but clearly, because he has that. I think the whole point of this scene is really that when he comes out of the room and he's like to Avassar, like, oh, I mean, was that all right? I mean, was it convincing? And he's doubting himself. Like, I think that's the real point of the scene. Notably the camera work in the scene as well, when he's actually giving the speech, there's a lot of it. I don't think the camera ever stops spinning. It's never crabbing.
It's always moving. And I actually realize in the speech as well that the kind of the backup point of it is to, because he's like, hey, we're working with Vassarala and Delgado, and he's like, it's telling the public that don't worry, I know that you all think I'm unqualified for this, and you're right. That's why I've got some support from people who do know what they're doing. I think there's a really smart message in there by framing it that way.
Yeah, and promising the biggest manhunt in human civilization's history. Which is interesting because when it gets to the actual meeting scene later with the cabinet, and he's asking for options, and we start getting the actual debates. Because we've been talking about what Marco's saying to the belt. We've been talking about how Marco's saying, oh no, now they're all coming for all of us. A lot of the belters are assuming that they're just going to be killed on sight by the inners because of what Marco's done. And we've been, and I think I pointed out a couple episodes ago that, I mean, I get why they expect that, and it may lead to that, but at least as of yet, we've not actually heard anything from any of the inners saying that they want to do that. And this is the scene where it finally gets to that question of, okay, what are we actually going to do now when it comes to conflict with the belt? And notably, Avasarala is against attacking, a random belter station, right?
But yeah, basically they're like, look, we should retaliate, strike back, and show them that you can't just attack us and there's no repercussions. But then there's like, well, they don't have a military base to attack, so we'd be actively choosing to attack a civilian population.
Yeah, and Delgado's the one who's actually gunning for this. So it's funny that probably the closest ally of Vasarala has seemingly had this season is starting to diverge. They're starting to go in different paths.
Not in a malicious way. It's not like he's being like incredibly evil. It's just he's presenting his opinion as he sees it, doing his job in the same way that he thinks he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I think this question coming up and this idea of you hoping that we can advance as a civilization, that they'll make the right choice, that they'll say, no, we're going to be better than Marco, because they very much acknowledge that Marco is the terrorist leader behind this, and it's only him and his the people who are loyal to him that they really should be going after and want. And they start talking about, okay, if we attack this station, and this is the one that theoretically, as far as we know, has the most extreme OPA members who are loyal to Marco, but how much of the station actually is that? Are we talking like high percentage? And Delgado can't even give them something, and they're like, okay, it's the highest percentage of any of the stations, but is that even the majority of the people on there? How much of the station is just innocent civilian lives that we're killing by doing this? Yeah. And I think it's the hope that the inners might prove that they won't become what Marco's saying, and that's what you're kind of hoping for, I think, when this debate starts rolling around. You're hoping that they're going to prove, no, we're not just going to maliciously kill everyone we see like Marco's telling you that we are.
Yeah, you would hope for it, but human history, even recent human history, tells us, no, they're probably going to make the shitty call.
Well, I don't want to say probably. I don't want to even predict, to be honest, at this point, because I think the whole crux of the suspense of this is
will they or won't they?
Is will they or won't they?
Yeah.
And I think because it is a story, because it is a TV show, you hope that they are going to make the right choice. You hope that Avasarala is going to... I can see a thing where effectively there's either... If the decision is going to be made to go through with it, because it's not been made in this episode, the Secretary General speaks to him later, and I thought, this is going to be the scene where Delgado's going to convince him that it's the right choice, and maybe he'll still make the choice, but again, new Secretary General is quite reserved and sort of like even acknowledges that he's been Delgado's been kind of extreme in his passion, and it comes across a little bit vengeful. It's like, no, we have to strike back and we have to do this. It's just he may ultimately make the choice to do it, but it doesn't feel like he's not been caught up in the bloodlust, if you will.
No, it's definitely not. Delgado is definitely presenting it as this is, to show them that they can't do this again without repercussions. And I get the argument where it's coming from here, and I get why it might work. I get why he might be convinced that ultimately this is the right call.
Avasarala's counter argument, which I think I agree with more than anything Delgado's saying, is that all you're going to do is make most of the belt side with Marco. You're going to prove exactly what he's saying, and they're all going to become radicalized. It's the slippery slope, and I think we're either going to get, obviously, the attack will happen, right, and we'll get the fallout of that, and that may be a big part of next season. It might almost happen, and Avasarala and maybe even the Rasi crew, depending on what else they've already done by that point, might get in the way and stop it or something. It'll be like a close call where it almost happens, but they manage to save everyone. One of the little touches I really like is that the station they pick, and it makes sense given that this is the one that's in Naomi in Marco's history, but what I like about it is that we had Naomi herself reminiscing about this very station just like an episode or two ago. Yeah. And that was a point. So when they mentioned it, okay, A, I recognise it's not just a random name, and B, okay, the idea that Naomi has emotional ties to this place, and this is a place where if it does get attacked, it's going to mean something to her, even if she has severed a lot of her ties to it specifically now.
I think even aside from just, okay, how will this affect Naomi, for example, it's smart in that it made it a real place for us.
Mm-hmm.
It gave it history. It's not just a name. Okay, Naomi had years of her life there, or whatever, however long. There is a history there that makes it feel lived in and real, and there's a society there beyond just we'll throw out a name.
Yeah.
I think
so
just if I was going to make a prediction, I would say we end the season on the attack being made, and that's like the cliffhanger for the season, basically. But we don't see the result yet. It'll be the call to make the attack. Will be the final moments of the season.
You might be right. I'd be more inclined to agree with that prediction if this was episode 9 and next week was 10.
No, I get that. My assumption is next week there will be none of this, and it will be getting Naomi and dealing with that, and then this will be the stuff in the final episode. I could be completely wrong.
We have notoriously been wrong predicting what the next episode is going to focus on several times throughout this season alone.
Yes.
So
yeah, I'm putting no real confidence in this prediction. I'm just making one because we're here.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm wondering like how much of next season is going to be about. I mean, obviously, I expect there's going to have to be fallout. There's going to be stuff to still deal with the OPA and this war or potential war and so on. But I know we also have to do some alien stuff because it's the last season.
I think it's possible, because we know from just other contexts there was after this book there was a time jump. Mm-hmm. I think it's possible that we end this season with the attack being made, or it happening maybe is the final moment, and we do have some sort of time jump, and we cut ahead to just this is after however many years at war. This is the situation with the belt right now. I can see that as a potential thing that happens.
It's interesting though. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of elements at play, and I'm excited. I'm more excited for the more emotional character stuff, admittedly, I think right now than I am the potential war. But the fact that plays into the war stuff because it's Marco, because they're after him, and it's just one of those things where we have the benefit of seeing the larger scope and seeing the other side of the arguments, but when Avasarala says, or one of them in the cabinet says, that Marco's essentially using his people as a shield right now because if it's funny, Marco himself is telling all the belt, they're going to kill us, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. But amusingly, he's also kind of banking on them hesitating, and that's what his shield is. He's shielding himself with his people.
Yeah, I think it was actually Delgado who made that argument we can't just let him use them as a shield. We have to make that point still. But
I think it's interesting that even the idea that he's doing that is at least a little hypocritical and to his own logic, or at least maybe not his own logic.
I wonder how
at least what he's
self-aware he is on that.
Yeah, like because you could argue that he doesn't really believe exactly what he's telling everyone. He's telling them what he wants them to hear, to convince them to do certain things,
he's just
to manipulating
on a very large scale.
But yeah, he's a bit more in tune with the reality, or there is the actual hypocrisy there. I mean, it's hypocrisy either way. It's just a case of, does he believe the things he's saying, and it's almost like not stupidity because he's not stupid, but ignorant hypocrisy versus malicious, intentional.
Because that one's worse, right? If he's aware of what he's doing and making the choice anyway, it makes him more villainous than just out of ignorance, I think.
I guess it makes him a worse person, sure. I think the other option's actually equally fascinating in a different way, though.
I'm not discounting that. Just I think it makes him a worse person, but that does not necessarily make it the more interesting choice. I mean, I think both are interesting choices, to be honest. It's a win-win here.
Yeah, I mean, that said, though, he's already like, on the scale of worst person, he's already so high up that the difference is meaningless at this point. But
he's pretty up there, yeah.
I mean, he did just, commit basically genocide. It's very, hard to get much worse than that at this point.
Yeah, he is intentionally trying to start an interplanetary war. While there is peace between Earth and Mars for the first time in decades.
Yeah, I was about to say the first an interplanetary war in history, but I thought, no, because Earth and Mars were technically at war, so...
But it was a bit of a Cold War, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm just wondering on this scale, is this technically the first... And this show's, like, world and history and mythology, because, it's called the Expanse. They're literally only just been here for, relatively speaking, not that long, right? It's not like... I mean, so I thought it's interesting. a lot of stuff going on. I think this was the first one we got to watch as a new episode the day it aired, which was nice.
Yeah. We were pretty close last week, I think, but this was, not bad.
We were close in recording. They didn't get the review till like Monday though, because it was spaced out.
No, did not?
One every other day. But I think we recorded that on the Friday last week, so it wasn't too far off. But this is
I think I watched it on the Thursday, so it didn't feel that late for me.
But this was exciting to get to. I was actively anticipating it, and I am now anticipating next week's, and that is partly why weekly TV is simply better. So, let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. Like and subscribe is super important. And I wanted to say this at the start, and I keep forgetting to do it. We're doing a top 50 TV shows of all time as voted for by you guys, the viewers. You, the people. That's just Bane from Dark Knight Rises. I didn't go full Bane voice, but...
No, there was just enough there, though, that I was like, okay, I get what you're doing.
You get a sense of it. Just a taste of Bane. So... Yes, there'll be a link in the description, but you can find the link on our Twitter, you can find it on the community post section of YouTube, you can find it on the Facebook page to submit your top 20 up to a top 50, and your shows that you put in there will get points, and there'll be results in February. This is to celebrate us hitting 10,000 subscribers. What are you saying?
I wonder how many people are going to put Expanse on the list, given that it's not finished yet.
I think being near the end of season 5, it stands a very good chance of being considered heavily by a lot of people who love it.
I think so, yeah.
I think it's hard when you've had one season. I think when you've had what we know is almost 5/6 of the whole show, that's a bit easier to make the call.
It is, yeah.
So, yeah, if you want the Expanse to appear well placed on the results, on that results top 50, then maybe go vote. You have to put at least top 20 for it to count, but go do that. And next TV thing I do, I'm going to remember to do it at the start. A little PSA before the review starts. I keep forgetting to do it. But yes, also you can support us of course over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?